Sarah Chung stood in the cold metal room and waited. The walls were gray and clean. Everything in Fleet Command was gray and clean. She had been waiting for 20 minutes now. Her hands stayed at her sides. Her back was straight. Even now, she looked like a proper soldier. The door opened with a soft hiss. Fleet Admiral Voss walked in. His face looked tired. Behind him came two other officers. Sarah knew them both. Captain Mills from Internal Affairs. Commander Torres from Personnel. This was not going to be good news. Commander Chun, Admiral Voss said. He did not sit down. Please remain standing. Sarah's heart started beating faster, but her face did not change. 11 years in the fleet had taught her to keep her feelings hidden. Yes, sir. Admiral Voss picked up a datapad from the table. The Proxima incident. Do you remember it? Yes, sir. 3 months ago. Tell me what happened. Sarah took a breath. 3 colony worlds were under attack. The Zephyrian raiders had better ships and more firepower. Standard protocol said to wait for backup. But the colonies would have been destroyed by then. So I made a choice. You violated direct orders. Yes, sir. You took your ship into an asteroid field. You used the asteroids as weapons. You rammed enemy vessels with mining equipment. You put civilian miners in combat situations. Sarah's jaw tightened. I saved 3 colonies. Over 2 million lives. Captain Mills stepped forward. Commander, your actions were reckless. You could have caused a diplomatic incident. The Zephyrians filed a formal complaint. The Zephyrians were murdering civilians, Sarah said. Her voice stayed calm, but inside she felt angry. They were burning entire cities. Admiral Voss set down the datapad. Chun, you are a good soldier. Maybe even a great one. But you don't follow orders. This isn't the first time. Sarah thought about the other times. The rescue mission on Kepler Station where she ignored evacuation protocols. The defense of New Terra where she used enemy weapons against their own forces. The liberation of the mining platform where she convinced pirates to switch sides mid-battle. Every time, she had saved lives. Every time, she had been criticized for breaking rules. The fleet needs discipline, Admiral Voss continued. We need soldiers who follow orders. We cannot have commanders making up their own rules. Even when those rules get people killed? Sarah asked. Commander Torres spoke for the first time. Commander Chun, you are being relieved of duty. Effective immediately. The words hit Sarah like a punch to the stomach. But she kept her face blank. For how long? Permanently, Admiral Voss said. Your commission is revoked. You will turn in your uniform, your weapons, and your access codes. Security will escort you to your quarters to collect personal items. Sarah felt the world spin around her. 11 years. She had given 11 years of her life to the fleet. She had fought in 12 major battles. She had saved countless lives. And now they were throwing her away because she refused to let people die while following stupid rules. What about my crew? She asked. They will be reassigned, Torres said. Your ship will get a new commander. Sarah thought about her crew. Lieutenant Crix, the Zentari, who had served with her for 5 years. He was careful and smart, but he trusted her completely. Sergeant Murphy, the human marine who had followed her through hell and back. Dr. Yelena, the Vorthan medic who had saved so many lives. They were more than her crew. They were her family. Sir, Sarah said. Request permission to speak freely. Admiral Voss nodded. You are making a mistake. The galaxy is changing. The threats are getting worse. Old tactics don't work anymore. You need people who can think differently, who can adapt. What we need, Admiral Voss said, is order, structure, predictability, not Cowboys who think they know better than centuries of military doctrine. Sarah almost laughed. Cowboys. They called humans cowboys when they fought too hard or took too many risks. It was supposed to be an insult, but Sarah had always thought it was a compliment. Cowboys fought for what was right, even when it was dangerous. Fine, she said. But when your order and structure fail, don't come looking for me. 2 security guards came into the room. They were polite but firm. Sarah knew both of them. She had fought alongside them in the Battle of Titan Ridge. Now they were here to escort her out like a criminal. They walked through the corridors of Station Cerberus. Other officers stepped aside as they passed. Some looked sad. Others looked angry. A few looked relieved. Sarah had never been popular with the rule followers. They reached the docking bay where her personal ship was parked. The Lucky Strike was a small, fast vessel. Not much to look at, but it had gotten her out of trouble many times. At least they were letting her keep it dot as they walked toward the ship. Sarah saw her crew waiting. All of them. Crick stood at attention, his forearms perfectly positioned. Murphy was trying not to cry. Dr. Yelena's tentacles moved in a pattern Sarah recognized as deep sadness. Attention! Crix called out. The crew snapped to attention. Sarah stopped in front of them. She wanted to say something meaningful, something inspiring, but the words would not come. Take care of each other, she said finally. Commander, Murphy said. Some of us. We put in for resignation. We want to come with you. Sarah felt her heart break a little more. No, stay here. The fleet needs good people. Be better than they are. She boarded her ship alone. As the engine started, she looked out the window. Her crew was still standing there, still at attention. Even as her ship pulled away, they did not move. Sarah set course for the outer rim. She did not look back. Behind her, Station Cerberus grew smaller and smaller until it was just another star in the darkness. She was no longer Commander Chun of the Galactic Defense Coalition. She was just Sarah Chen, unemployed soldier. But she was still human. And humans, she knew, were very hard to keep down. 3 months had passed since Sarah Chen left the fleet. She now lived on Haven's Rest, a small world on the edge of known space. The planet was mostly farms and mining colonies. The people here were tough. They had to be. The government was far away, and help rarely came when trouble started. Sarah rented a small cabin outside the main settlement. She tried to live quietly. She fixed equipment for farmers and helped with small repairs. The work was simple, but it paid enough to keep her ship fueled and her stomach full. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning. Sarah was drinking coffee when she heard explosions in the distance. She grabbed her binoculars and looked toward the valley. Smoke was rising from the Hendricks farm. Through the smoke, she could see ships. Pirate vessels. They were fast and armed with energy weapons. The local militia was already mobilizing. Sarah watched them through her binoculars. They had good hearts but no real training. They were farmers with hunting rifles going up against professional raiders. It would be a massacre. Sarah made a decision. She grabbed her gear and ran to her ship. The Lucky Strike reached the farm in minutes. The pirates had landed and were loading stolen grain into their cargo holds. The militia was pinned down behind farming equipment. Their rifles could barely scratch the pirates' armor. Sarah did not announce herself. She did not call for surrender. She simply started shooting. The Lucky Strike's guns were military grade. The first pirate ship exploded before they knew what hit them. The second ship tried to take off, but Sarah was ready. She put 3 shots into its engines. It crashed into a grain silo. The ground fighting was different. These pirates were veterans. They had good weapons and body armor. But they were not expecting someone who knew how to fight. Sarah used the farm itself as a weapon. She triggered the automated irrigation system to flood the main yard, making it hard for the pirates to move. She overloaded the grain processing equipment to create choking dust clouds. She even convinced the farm animals to panic and run, creating chaos in the pirate ranks. The militia saw what she was doing and followed her lead. They stopped trying to fight like soldiers and started fighting like farmers. They used farm tools as weapons. They knew every hiding spot and back trail on their own land. In 20 minutes, it was over. Half the pirates were dead. The rest were tied up in the barn. The militia captain was a man named Jim Hendricks. His family had owned the farm for 3 generations. He looked at Sarah with amazement. "Lady, I don't know who you are, but you just saved our lives. What do you want in return?" Sarah thought about it. "Training. I want to train your people so this doesn't happen again." Word spread quickly. Other settlements heard about the human woman who had taught farmers to be professional pirates. They started asking for help. Sarah found herself traveling from colony to colony, teaching people how to defend themselves. Her methods were unlike anything the colonists had seen. She did not teach them to be soldiers. She taught them to be clever. On New Prairie, she showed the ranchers how to use their herds as weapons. Angry cattle could break enemy formations better than any tank. On Mining Station Beta 7, she taught the workers to use their industrial equipment as artillery. A mining laser could cut through any armor ever made. Each victory made Sarah's reputation grow. The pirates started avoiding certain sectors. They called them Chun territory and warned each other to stay away. But Sarah was not the only one with problems. Back at Fleet Command, Admiral Voss was facing a crisis unlike anything he had seen before. The Vorthak Empire had appeared from deep space 6 months ago. Their ships were made of living crystal that could heal damage and adapt to enemy attacks. Their weapons used some kind of energy, manipulation that could turn a ship's own power against it. The first engagement had been a disaster. The Coalition sent a full battle group to intercept a Vorthak scouting force. Standard tactics called for a long-range bombardment, followed by coordinated assault formations. It should have been simple. Instead, the Vorthak ships absorbed the bombardment and used the energy to grow stronger. When the Coalition ships closed in, the aliens somehow turned their formation against them. Ships collided with each other. Weapons fired on friendly targets. Of the 20 ships that entered the battle, only 3 escaped. Admiral Voss studied the battle reports night and day. Nothing made sense. The Vorthak seemed to learn and adapt in real time. Every tactic the Coalition tried worked once, maybe twice. Then the aliens found a counter. The second battle was worse. The third was a complete disaster. The Vorthak were pushing into Coalition space, and nothing seemed able to stop them. Captain Nils came into Voss's office with the latest reports. His face was grim. "Sir, we lost another system. Kepler Prime fell this morning. The defenders never had a chance." Voss rubbed his temples. "Casualties? 43 ships. 12,000 personnel. The civilian population evacuated, but barely. What about the new tactical protocols? The Vorthak adapted to them in less than 2 hours. It's like they can read our minds." Voss stared at the star map on his wall. Red markers showed Vorthak-occupied systems. There were too many of them, and the number was growing every day. "Sir," Nils said carefully, "some of the officers have been asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "About unconventional tactics. About commanders who think outside normal parameters." Voss knew what Mills meant. "You're talking about Chun. Her record shows an unusual number of victories against superior forces. She specialized in fighting enemies that shouldn't be beatable. Chun is gone. She was dismissed for good reasons." "Yes, sir." But the officers remember the Proxima incident. How she beat the Zephyrians when everyone said it was impossible. Voss was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the Proxima incident. The Zephyrians had been using new tactics too. They had adapted quickly to coalition responses. Chum had beaten them by doing things that made no tactical sense. She had used asteroids as weapons. She had convinced civilian miners to ram military vessels with cargo ships. It should have failed completely. Instead, it had worked perfectly. "Sir," Mills said, "maybe it's time to consider bringing her back." Chung violated direct orders. She ignored the chain of command. She put civilians in danger. And she won. Every time. Voss turned back to the star map. Another red marker appeared while he watched. Another system lost. Another defeat for the coalition. Maybe Mills was right. Maybe it was time to think differently. "Find her?" Voss said quietly. "Sir?" "Find Chun, but do it quietly. No official channels. I want to know where she is and what she's doing." "Yes, sir." As Mills left, Voss continued staring at the map. He was about to do something that went against everything he believed in. He was going to ask a disgraced soldier for help, but people were dying. And sometimes, desperate times called for desperate measures, even if those measures involved cowboys. Captain Crix checked his navigation display one more time. The coordinates led to a small trading post called Murphy's Station. It was the kind of place where people came to disappear or to find things that could not be found elsewhere. The perfect place for someone like Sarah Chun to hide. Crix had been searching for 3 weeks now. Admiral Voss had given him a small, unmarked ship and orders to find Chun quietly. No official requests. No fleet channels. Just one former officer looking for another. The search had been difficult. Chun had vanished completely from all official records. No financial transactions. No ship registrations. No communication signals. It was like she had never existed. But Crix knew Chun better than most humans. He had served as her second-in-command for 5 years. He knew how she thought. She would not hide in the core worlds where fleet surveillance was heavy. She would go to the frontier. And she would not be able to sit quietly while people needed help. The first clue came from a cargo hauler captain named Rodriguez. He had mentioned a mysterious woman who had helped his convoy fight off raiders near the Titan Nebula. The description matched Chen, but Rodriguez claimed it was impossible. This lady, she made those pirates run with nothing but farming equipment and some very angry cows, Rodriguez had said. Pirates don't run from cows. The second clue came from a mining station. The administrator there spoke of a human woman who had taught his security team to use industrial tools as weapons. She had trained them for 3 days, then disappeared without payment. Each lead pointed toward the outer rim, toward worlds that the fleet barely knew existed. Crix's ship, the Seeker, docked at Murphy's Station without incident. The station was old and rough-looking. Perfect for people who wanted to avoid official attention. The bar was called The Last Stop. Inside, it was dark and smoky. The customers were miners, haulers, and traders. All of them looked like they had stories they did not want to share. Crix approached the bartender. The man was human, middle-aged, with scars on his hands and arms. His name tag said, Murphy. "I am looking for someone," Crix said. He kept his voice casual. A human woman, about 35 years old. Short, dark hair. Military bearing. Murphy continued polishing a glass. A lot of people pass through here. Most don't leave names. Crix placed a credit chip on the bar. This woman would have helped people. Probably for free. She has a talent for solving impossible problems. Murphy glanced at the credit chip. Then he looked at Crix more carefully. "You're Zentari. Military, by the way you stand. Fleet, I guess." Former fleet, Crick said. It was not quite a lie. And you're looking for a former fleet officer who helps people for free. Murphy smiled. You're talking about the Angel. Angel? That's what folks around here call her. The Angel of the Outer Rim. She shows up when people are in trouble, fixes the problem, then vanishes again. Murphy leaned across the bar. 3 months ago, she saved Hendrick's farm from pirates. Used the farm itself as a weapon. Last month, she taught the miners on Ceres Station how to fight off raiders using nothing but mining equipment. Week before that, she convinced a pirate crew to switch sides and protect a convoy instead of robbing it. Crix felt excitement build in his chest. This sounded exactly like Chun. Where can I find her? That's the thing about angels, Murphy said. You don't find them. They find you when you need them most. A voice spoke from behind Crix. Depends on why you're looking. Crix turned. A woman sat at a cornered table. She was human, about 40 years old, with graying hair and weathered skin. Her clothes were practical spacer gear, but Crix could see old military habits in the way she sat and held herself. Captain Rodriguez said someone was asking about the Angel. The woman continued. Word travels fast out here. People are protective of her. Crix approached the table. May I sit? The woman gestured to an empty chair. I'm Captain Sarah Blake, independent freighter. And you are? Captain Crix, former fleet officer. Former? What happened? Crix hesitated. The truth was complicated. I resigned when my commanding officer was dismissed unfairly. Blake studied him carefully. This commanding officer. Someone worth resigning for? The best officer I ever served under. Someone who saved lives while others worried about regulations. Blake nodded slowly. The Angel has been talking about something. About how the fleet is fighting a new war with old tactics. About how rigid thinking gets people killed. She paused. About how sometimes good soldiers have to choose between following orders and doing what's right. She sounds like someone I would like to meet. Follow. Me. Blake led Crix out of the station to a small cargo ship. Inside, the ship was clean and well maintained. But Crix noticed modifications. Extra armor. Upgraded weapons. Communication equipment that was better than most military ships carried. Blake spoke into a comm unit. Angel, this is Blake. I have someone here you should meet. Says his name is Captain Crix. There was a long pause. Then a familiar voice came through the speaker. Crix? What are you doing out here? Sarah Chun's face appeared on the screen. She looked older, more weathered. But her eyes were still sharp and intelligent. Seeing her again made Crix realize how much he had missed working with her. Commander, Crix said, then caught himself. Sarah, I have been looking for you. Why? Crix explained about the Vorthek, about the defeats and casualties, about how the fleet's standard tactics were useless against an enemy that adapted faster than they could think. Sarah listened without interruption. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. The fleet fired me, she said finally. They said I was too dangerous, too unpredictable. People are dying, Sarah. The Vorthek are learning our patterns faster than we can change them. We need someone who thinks differently. We? Crix realized what he had said. I mean, the fleet needs someone who thinks differently. Sarah smiled. It was not a happy smile. The fleet made their choice, Crix. They wanted predictability. They wanted soldiers who follow orders without question. And now they are losing. Yes, and people are dying because of it. Blake spoke up. Sarah, you've built something here. A network of worlds that can defend themselves. People who think for themselves instead of following ancient rulebooks. Crix looked around the ship with new understanding. This is not just a freighter. This is a command ship. 12 worlds, Sarah said. 43 settlements, all connected by communication networks and mutual defense agreements. They share resources, information, and tactics. When one world is threatened, others respond immediately. You built your own fleet, Crick said, amazed. I built something better. I built a community that thinks for itself. Blake activated a holographic display. It showed the local sector with dozens of settlements marked in green. Trade routes connected them like a web. Defense positions were marked at strategic points. The pirates have stopped raiding this entire sector, Blake explained. Not because we have bigger guns, but because we fight smarter. We adapt faster than they can plan. Crix stared at the display. In 3 months, Sarah had accomplished what the fleet could not do in years. She had created stability and security through cooperation and innovation. This is impressive, he said. But the Vorthik are different. They are not pirates or raiders. They are a military force unlike anything we have faced. I know, Sarah said. We've been tracking their advance. They'll reach this sector within 6 months. Then you understand why I am here. The fleet needs your help. Sarah turned off the display. The fleet had my help for 11 years. They threw it away. Sarah, please. Think about all the people who will die if we cannot stop the Vorthak. I am thinking about them. That's why I'm building something that can survive when the fleet fails. Crix felt frustration building. This was not going as he had hoped. What would it take? What would the fleet have to offer to get your help? Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Complete operational freedom. No interference. No second guessing. And the right to do things my way, even when it makes admirals nervous. That might be possible. And I want my old crew back. All of them. Including you, if you want to come. Crix felt something stir in his chest. The prospect of serving with Sarah again was tempting. But he was also curious about something else. What makes you think your methods will work against the Vorthik? They adapt to everything. Sarah smiled. This time, it was a real smile. They adapt to logical tactics, to predictable strategies. But there's nothing logical about humans when they're cornered. She activated the display again. This time, it showed battle simulations. Human forces using impossible tactics. Ramming attacks. Suicide runs. Strategies that made no sense from a mathematical perspective. The Vorthik think like computers. They analyze patterns and develop counters. But humans don't follow patterns when their backs are against the wall. We get desperate. We get crazy. We do things that no rational mind would consider. That sounds dangerous. Everything worthwhile is dangerous. Crix, the question is whether the fleet is ready to admit that sometimes the best way to win is to stop trying to make sense. Crix thought about everything he had seen. Sarah's network. Her unconventional tactics. Her willingness to break rules to save lives. I will take your message back to Admiral Voss, he said. Tell him something for me, Sarah said. Tell him that if he wants my help, he needs to stop thinking like an admiral and start thinking like a human. As Crix prepared to leave, he realized that Sarah Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Vigilance and watched another defeat unfold. The Vorthik had taken the Hermes system in less than 6 hours. 15 coalition ships had been destroyed. The rest had retreated in disorder. This was the 4th major defeat in 2 weeks. The alien advance was accelerating. Every battle taught them more about coalition tactics. Every victory made them stronger. Captain Crix had returned from his mission with disturbing news. Chun was alive and well. She had built some kind of independent network on the outer rim. And she had conditions for helping the fleet. Conditions that made Voss's stomach turn. Sir, Communications Officer Davis called out. We're receiving a transmission from the outer rim. It's marked for your eyes only. Voss took the message pad and read it privately. It was from Sarah Chun, short and direct, like everything about her. Admiral Voss, Captain Crix delivered your message. I understand the fleet needs help. I'm willing to discuss terms. Meet me at coordinates 127.4 by 89.2 in the Haven system. Come alone, except for essential crew. No escorts. No backup. Just you and me talking like adults. You have 48 hours. After that, I go back to my own problems, and you figure out yours. Sarah Chun. Voss read the message 3 times. Going to meet Chun would be a huge risk. The Haven system was in uncontrolled space. If this was a trap, he would be helpless. But if Chun could really help against the Vorthek... Davis, prepare the fast courier Mercury for immediate departure. Minimal crew. No escort. Sir, regulations require... I don't care about regulations right now, Lieutenant. 6 hours later, Voss was traveling toward the Haven system in a ship barely bigger than a shuttle. His only companions were a pilot and a communications officer. For the first time in 20 years, he was operating without backup, without support, without the massive bureaucracy of Fleet Command behind him. It felt terrifying. It also felt oddly liberating. The coordinates led to Haven's Rest, a small agricultural world that barely appeared on fleet charts. As they approached the planet, sensors detected multiple ships in orbit. Not military vessels, but converted freighters, mining ships, and modified civilian craft. All of them were armed. All of them were watching the Mercury's approach. Unknown vessel, this is Haven Defense Control. Can a voice over the com? State your business. This is Admiral Voss of the Galactic Defense Coalition. I'm here to meet with Sarah Chun. There was a pause. Please follow the navigation beacon to landing platform 7. You will be met on arrival. The planet's surface was greener than Voss had expected. Rolling hills covered with farms and small settlements. It looked peaceful. But his trained eye noticed defensive positions. Anti-aircraft batteries disguised as agricultural equipment. Concealed bunkers built into hillsides. Sarah Chun was waiting at the landing platform. She wore civilian clothes, but she still carried herself like a soldier. With her were a dozen people of various species. Human farmers. Centauri technicians. A few beings Voss did not recognize. All of them looked competent and alert. Admiral, Sarah said as he stepped off his ship. Welcome to Haven's Rest. Voss looked around. Impressive setup. How did you build all this in 3 months? People work fast when they have good reasons and no bureaucracy slowing them down. Sarah led him to a simple building that served as a meeting hall. Inside, a large holographic display showed the current tactical situation. Vorthik positions were marked in red. Coalition forces in blue. The red was spreading like a disease. Your situation is worse than I thought, Sarah said without preamble. The Vorthik have taken 14 systems in the last month. They're moving toward the core worlds. That's why we need your help. Sarah activated another display. This one showed battle records from the recent defeats. Ships destroyed. Casualties mounting. Tactical failures repeated over and over. Your commanders are fighting the same battle again and again, Sarah said. They follow the same patterns. Use the same formations. Make the same assumptions. The Vorthik are learning faster than you are adapting. Voss studied the displays. Seeing all the failures laid out like this was painful. What would you do differently? Everything. Sarah changed the display to show her own tactical analyses. The Vorthik think like computers. They process information, identify patterns, develop countermeasures. But they expect their enemies to think the same way. And humans don't? Humans are chaos engines, Admiral. We make decisions based on emotion, instinct, and pure stubbornness. We do things that make no logical sense. That's what the Vorthik can't understand. Sarah showed him simulation after simulation. Human forces using tactics that looked like suicide runs, but somehow worked. Ships ramming enemy vessels not to destroy them, but to confuse their adaptive algorithms. Fighters attacking in patterns that made no mathematical sense but disrupted Vorthak coordination. This is interesting, Voss said carefully. But these are just simulations. No, these are based on actual engagements. Small ones. My people have been fighting Vorthak scouts for weeks. Voss stared at her. You've been engaging the enemy without authorization? I've been protecting my people. The Vorthak reached the outer rim 2 weeks ago. We fought them 6 times. We've won 5 times and drawn once. That's impossible. No one has defeated the Vorthik in direct combat. No one who fights by your rules has defeated them, Sarah corrected. But we don't follow your rules. She showed him footage from the battles. Sarah's mixed fleet using tactics that hurt to watch. Converted mine ships ramming crystal formations. Civilian freighters equipped with industrial lasers cutting through alien hulls. Most disturbing of all, human crews deliberately putting themselves in impossible danger to create tactical opportunities. This is madness, Voss said. This is humanity, Sarah replied. We're the species that build spaceships by strapping ourselves to controlled explosions. We're the ones who think it's fun to jump out of perfectly good aircraft. When we're cornered, we don't get logical. We get mean. Voss watched the battle footage in silence. It was brutal and chaotic, and completely contrary to everything he had been taught about proper military doctrine. It was also undeniably effective. What are your terms? He asked finally. Sarah sat back in her chair. Complete tactical autonomy. I want my own command with authority to operate independently. No oversight. No interference. No questions about my methods. That's asking a lot. I'm offering a lot. I can give you victories against an enemy that has been unbeatable. What else? I want my old crew back. All of them. And I want the authority to recruit from outside. Normal channels. Pirates. Smugglers. Mercenaries. Anyone who knows how to fight dirty. Voss winced. The fleet has standards. The fleet has standards that are getting people killed. I need fighters who think outside the box, who don't mind breaking a few rules to win. Anything else? I want the right to train other officers in unconventional tactics. Create a new division that specializes in adaptive warfare. People who can think like humans instead of like textbooks. Voss was quiet for a long moment. Everything Sarah was asking for went against decades of military tradition. It would cause chaos in the command structure. It would upset established procedures, but people were dying. Worlds were falling. The Vorthik were winning. If I agreed to this, he said slowly, you would return to the fleet. I would return to save lives, but not as the same person who left. I'm not asking for my old rank back. I'm asking for the authority to do what needs to be done. And if your methods fail, Sarah smiled grimly, then at least we'll fail doing something different, instead of repeating the same mistakes until the Vorthik reach Earth. Voss looked at the tactical displays again, at the spreading red markers, at the casualty reports that grew longer every day. There's something else, Sarah said. I've been working on new communication protocols, ways to coordinate forces that don't rely on predictable command structures. The Vorthik intercept and analyze our communications. They learn our coordination patterns. She showed him a schematic of her network. Instead of rigid hierarchies, it was a web of interconnected nodes. Each ship and unit could communicate with any other without going through central command. It's based on how civilian communities organize, Sarah explained. Flexible, adaptive, No single points of failure. This would require completely restructuring fleet communications. Yes, and training thousands of officers to think differently, to trust their subordinates instead of micromanaging them, to make decisions based on local conditions instead of distant orders. Voss realized what Sarah was really proposing. Not just new tactics, but a complete transformation of how the fleet operated. It would be the largest organizational change in military history. The Fleet Council would never approve this, he said. Then don't ask them. You have emergency powers. Use them. Voss stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see Sarah's people working together. Humans and aliens cooperating without formal hierarchies. Ships being repaired by crews that included former pirates and ex-military personnel. A functioning society built on trust and competence instead of rank and protocol. If I do this, he said, there's no going back. The fleet will never be the same. Good, Sarah said, because the galaxy will never be the same either. The old ways of fighting are over. Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of her new flagship and watched her fleet assemble. The ship was called Defiance, and it looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. The hull was a patchwork of military armor and civilian modifications. The crew was even more unusual. Captain Crix stood at the tactical station, his forearms working multiple displays simultaneously. Sergeant Murphy commanded the Marine contingent, a mixed force of ex-fleet soldiers and reformed pirates. Dr. Yelena ran the medical bay with the efficiency she had always shown. And at the communications station sat Jake Whisper Morrison, a former smuggler who knew more about illegal communication networks than anyone in the fleet. It had been 2 months since Admiral Voss had given Sarah complete authority. 2 months to build something that could fight the Vorthik effectively. The result was unlike anything in military history. Her fleet contained 47 ships. Military vessels served alongside converted freighters, mining barges, and even a few captured pirate ships. The crews were equally mixed. Former fleet officers worked with ex-smugglers, reformed pirates, and civilian volunteers who had lost their homes to the Vorthik. Admiral, Crick said. Sarah still felt strange hearing her new rank, but Voss had insisted. All ships report ready for operation. Communications check, Sarah ordered. Whisper's fingers flew over his controls. All channels clear. Network protocols active. Every ship can talk to every other ship without going through central command. This was one of Sarah's most important innovations. Traditional fleet communications went through rigid hierarchies. Orders flowed down from admirals to captains to subordinates. The Vorthik had learned to intercept and analyze these patterns, predicting fleet movements before they happened. Sarah's network was different. Every captain had authority to make tactical decisions. Every ship could coordinate directly with any other ship. It was chaotic by traditional standards, but it was also unpredictable. Target update. Dr. Yelena reported from her secondary station. Vorthek fleet detected in the Titan system. Estimated strength, 60 ships. Sarah studied the tactical display. The Vorthek fleet was larger than hers, better armed, and had been winning every battle for months. By all traditional measures, this should be a massacre. All ships, this is Admiral Chun, she said into the com. We all know what we're up against. The Vorthik think faster than us, adapt quicker than us, and learn from every mistake we make. They're probably listening to this conversation right now, analyzing our speech patterns and trying to predict our tactics. She paused, looking around her bridge. Every face showed determination mixed with fear. Good. Fear kept people alive in combat. But there's something the Vorthik don't understand about humans. We don't fight to win. We fight to survive. And when humans are cornered, when our backs are against the wall, when every logical option has failed, We do something that no computer can predict. We get stupid brave. Laughter came through the comm from several ships. Even some of the alien crew members were smiling. Today, we're going to show the galaxy what happens when humans stop trying to make sense. Chun out. The jump to the Titan system was coordinated, but not synchronized. Ships arrived in small groups over several minutes instead of in a single massive formation. It looked disorganized. It was meant to. The Vorthek fleet was arranged in perfect geometric patterns around the system's main planet. Their crystal ships pulsed with energy, already adapting to the human approach. Sarah counted 63 vessels, each one larger than anything in her fleet. "They're scanning us," Crix reported. "Analyzing formation patterns, weapon signatures, energy outputs." "Perfect," Sarah said. "Let them analyze this. All ships, execute protocol chaos." What happened next would have given heart attacks to every military academy instructor in the galaxy. Sarah's fleet abandoned all formation flying. Ships scattered in random directions. Some accelerated toward the enemy. Others decelerated. A few started flying in circles. The converted mining ship Determination fired its drilling lasers at maximum range, knowing they could not possibly hit anything. The former pirate vessel Lucky Devil launched all its missiles simultaneously, sending them in every direction. The agricultural transport Harvest Moon activated its cargo bay doors and started dumping actual grain into space. "Admiral," Crix said nervously, "the formations are completely chaotic." "Exactly. The Vorthek are trying to analyze our patterns. Let them analyze this madness." The Vorthek fleet responded with typical precision. They formed attack formations based on standard tactical doctrine. They positioned themselves to counter expected human maneuvers. They prepared for a logical battle against a rational enemy. They were not prepared for humans. "All ships, Phase 2, Sarah ordered. The real attack began. But it was unlike any attack in military history. The mining ship, Determination, flew directly toward the largest Vorthek vessel. As enemy fire tore into its hull, the crew used their industrial equipment to mine asteroids and hurl them at enemy ships. The Vorthek adapted to defend against the asteroids, then watched in confusion as the mining ship rammed itself into their flagship. The agricultural transport, Harvest Moon, had not been dumping grain randomly. The grain was laced with metallic particles that interfered with Vorthek sensors. As enemy ships tried to adapt to the sensor interference, human fighters attacked from unexpected angles. The former pirate ship, Lucky Devil, used tactics that no military academy would teach. It pretended to be disabled, let Vorthek ships close in, then activated hidden weapons and attacked at point-blank range. When those weapons were destroyed, the crew started throwing tools and furniture out of airlocks, creating improvised projectiles. Every ship in Sarah's fleet was fighting differently. Some used traditional tactics. Others used completely insane strategies. The freighter Independence was ramming enemies with its cargo bay full of explosives. The research vessel Curiosity was using its scientific equipment to create gravitational anomalies. The hospital ship Mercy was saving human casualties while simultaneously using its medical lasers as weapons that the Vorthek could not adapt. Every time they developed a counter to one tactic, the humans switched to something completely different. Their crystal ships, designed for logical warfare, were overwhelmed by pure chaos. "They're trying to retreat," Crix reported. "Don't let them," Sarah ordered. "All ships pursue. Stay random. Keep them confused." The pursuit was as chaotic as the battle. Human ships chased Vorthek vessels in seemingly random patterns. Some humans sang over the radio. Others recited poetry. The crew of Lucky Devil was playing music at maximum volume. While firing every weapon they had got in the middle of this madness, something remarkable happened. The Vorthek made a mistake. Their flagship, trying to escape the chaos, flew into a formation of human ships. Instead of scattering as any logical force would do, the humans converged on it. Every ship attacked simultaneously with whatever weapons they had left. The result was devastating. The Vorthak flagship, designed to withstand coordinated military assault, was torn apart by pure, undirected human fury. Its destruction sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. For the first time since the war began, the Vorthak panicked. Their remaining ships abandoned formation and fled in random directions. But Sarah's fleet was ready. Her captains, freed from rigid command structures, pursued individual targets with creativity and determination. Captain Rodriguez, in the hard luck, convinced the Vorthak crew to surrender by broadcasting episodes of human comedy shows at them until their translation systems overloaded. The crew of Midnight Runner disabled an enemy ship by ramming it with a cargo container full of rubber balls, jamming its weapons systems. When the battle ended, 37 Vorthak ships had been destroyed or captured. The rest had fled the system in complete disorder. Sarah's fleet had lost 11 ships, but they had achieved something impossible. They had defeated the Vorthak. "Admiral," Whisper called from his communication station. "We're receiving messages from across the sector. Other fleets want to know how we did it." Sarah smiled. "Tell them we fought like humans." The news of the victory spread across the galaxy within hours. For the first time since the war began, the Coalition had proof that the Vorthek could be beaten. But more importantly, they had learned how to beat them. Admiral Voss arrived 3 days later with a full fleet. He found Sarah's ships making repairs while the crews celebrated together. Humans and aliens, former enemies and old friends, all united by their shared victory. "Chun," Voss said as he came aboard the Defiance, "I've been reviewing the battle records. What you did here, it changes everything. That was the idea. High Command wants to implement your tactics fleet-wide. They want you to train other commanders in unconventional warfare." Sarah nodded. "Good. But remember what made this work. It wasn't just the tactics. It was the freedom. The authority to make decisions without waiting for approval from distant commanders. The fleet will have to change. The galaxy is changing, Admiral. We can change with it or we can be left behind." Over the following months, Sarah's method spread throughout the Coalition fleet. The Adaptive Response Division grew from a single mixed squadron to an entire branch of the military. Officers learned to trust their crews. Crews learned to think for themselves.